So y'all are telling me you went all the way to Africa to physically take black people from their homes, shove them in on boats where a lot of them got diseases and died, and if they made it to America, enslave them, torture them, beat them, whip them, kill them, even fought a war to try and keep them enslaved, which they lost. And the ones they were freed, segregated them. Told them where they could sit on a bus, told them which schools they could go to, which water fountains they could use, which bathrooms they could use, and that's sugarcoating it. Those are just terms. I'm not even describing all the disgusting things that happened, and they don't even want revenge. They are letting you guys skate by asking for equal rights. That's it? And you're still saying no? They are not as angry as they should be. Y'all are getting off easy, and you're still saying no?
How we talk about black people. And it is fucked up because it is a microcosm of America. Asians, we love seeing black excellence. Barack, Michelle, Jay, Beyonce, give me the Travis Scott 4s. We spent the last 5 weeks praying at the altar of Michael Jordan. How could we be afraid? We love black America. Yeah, on screen and our living rooms. But if a black man walks into your living room, or wants to date, God forbid, marry your daughter, you call the cops. Dude, do you know what we call black people? We call them kala. It means black, not in a good way. If someone in your family is dark-skinned, we clown them. We call them kallu. Look at kallu. Our Bollywood stars do skin whitening commercials so we don't look black. Thank you, Britain. It is bad to be black in Desi culture, even though we all wish we were black. You don't think that affects how we view black people? 20% of Muslims in America are black. We don't even like praying at the same mosques. If they show up at the masjid, we're like, yo, is Farrakhan here? That is the great hypocrisy. We love seeing how high a black person can ascend in America, but we have done nothing to raise the floor. That is what these protests are about.
Yeah. G Shandy, low IQ. So you see, they wrote this on the blackboard for these African kids to read it. Washi Hegwe T Shadi, which means I am a black monster or I'm an N-word with a low IQ. How on earth would you allow foreigners to come into your country to exploit your own people and at the same time insult the entire black people of this world? So mad, man. Just so mad.
Everybody is walking on the road in this midnight. They are still chasing us. You see, they cannot give us house. They cannot give us hotel. They cannot provide.
You're not allowed to go in? Well, I can go in. You can? Yeah, I can go in and they cannot. Come on. They can. Right? Okay. Check it. Oh my god, this is ridiculous. I'm sorry, I cannot help you. Really. Oh my god.
This is what's going on in Guangzhou right now. Black people have been kicked out of their apartments. Students have been kicked out of their dormitories because there's been a new surge of corona in China. And they're saying this is coming from black people. Even if some black people have corona disease, is this how to treat people? They made these people pay 6 months rent and now they've kicked them out of their rooms. They're literally sleeping on the street. This is not how to treat people. We are not animals. We are not dogs. There are many Chinese in Africa, but we don't treat them like this. No. When this pandemic was going on, when this outbreak was still going on in China, Africa was still welcoming Chinese into our continent. We were welcoming them into our various countries. So how come you're treating people like this?
Brenda, not her real name, has been living in China since 2017. Earlier this week, she was kicked out of her home without any explanation. And just like any other person in a foreign country, the embassy is usually the next resort. For her, it was the Kenyan embassy.
I didn't have a place to go. I had to sleep outside. Yes, I did sleep outside. The next day they came. I tried calling them. They were not actually responding to my call. What they told me, go to the police. I did that. After staying at the police station for a maximum of 3 good hours, they told me that we are sorry, we cannot help.
She reached a dead end after 2 days of sleeping outside the embassy, a situation that many like her from other African nations have found themselves in. This video shows Chinese police officers escorting people of African descent from a place they had set apart for themselves.
I know of 2 pregnant ladies. One is 8 months pregnant, the other is 6 months pregnant. They cannot access hospital.
Patricia, also not her real name, was lucky to have escaped the eyes of Chinese nationals who came knocking in her house earlier today. Our conversation on phone revealing just how scary everything is.
No, I don't have food. I don't know what to do. I can't just go to the street. I don't want to sleep outside. Now it's either I choose to have somewhere to sleep or I choose food.
So our landlord gave us an hour quick notice. Can you imagine? Only in China that the landlord would just come, switch off your lights and give you an hour quick notice to leave. When you have legal signed documents with him, you have contracts of a 6-month rate. You're paid upfront with the taxation and everything. And then the landlord will just come to your door and knock and tell you he's coming up in 10 minutes, that he's giving you an hour to pack out. With the whole situation out there. Why even are we animals?
What saddens me is that all these people were staying in China all this while when the outbreak was going on. How many black people died from this disease in China? But now that things are getting a little better, this is how you...
And various people could look at the same exact thing and see something completely different. Now it seems a little counterintuitive, but let me explain. But we often don't consider the complex relationship that each one of us have with media and how that shapes our perception of reality. As individuals, we've always craved the ability to contextualize our human experience with those around us. We want the ability to say, we want to look at someone and say, I see what you're doing, what you're thinking, what you're saying, what you're feeling, so that I know how to think, how to act, and how to feel. Not necessarily to mimic those around us, but simply to contextualize who we are, our unique human experience in the spectrum of possibility. And the funny thing is, media has provided us with that ability to say, I know how to act in this situation. I watch a sitcom, and now I know how to act on a date. I watch the red carpet, and now I know how to act, how to interview, if I ever reach that status. But because of how old we are, where we come from, our race, ethnicity, class, gender, and things that we don't necessarily have control over. Because of these factors, we're exposed to different types of media. And not only are we exposed to different types of media, we process this media quite differently. And as a result, we all have unique relationships with media. And because of this, our perceptions of the world diverges from one another. We can be looking at the same facts, the same images, reading the same Facebook statuses, and see and feel something completely different. And our social contexts begin to diverge. So in 2016, a time where most of us are attached to our devices, looking at our screens, media has become this pervasive and constant filter for how we see society, how we see reality. And as we traverse our different lives, it's important to recognize that we each have unique filters. We inhabit unique digital worlds. Even though we sit together here, as part of one Lehigh community. We actually are part of very distant worlds. Our unique filters, as they manifest on our Facebook news feeds, who we follow on Instagram, what news platforms we care about. As a result of this, we inhabit very distinct digital worlds, fit to our exact personalities, feeding into our very specific emotional needs. And I think this is quite problematic. Yeah, when it comes to trivial things like what memes we enjoy, what public figures we like to follow, what Instagram pages we enjoy, our divergent filters have relatively little impact. They're harmless. It doesn't matter that I like to follow one dog Instagram page and you like to follow cats. That doesn't matter. But when it comes to more serious issues and content that require thoughtfulness, discussion, clarity, empathy, and most importantly, love, our divergent filters fail us. We self-indulge in these echo chambers and clickbait news articles that only affirm our deepest emotional drives and insecurities. The internet, social media, news, these are institutions that at the highest level ideally should be bringing us together, as they should free us from the limitations of our immediate physical realities. But instead, we see that they're pulling us apart.
未来有没有可能啊？我们中国对于一些非洲人的一些负面的一些形象啊、固有形象会更多的消失呢？
那是肯定的，因为没有不了解而产生的问题，都会随着交流而解决。
这样的耗时，我觉得差不多还得需要30-50年或者是上百年的时间。因为这种民族之间的融合还是非常慢的。因为从历史上来讲，你说那中国融合了这么多民族，现在才形成一个这种共荣的这种局面，我觉得应该不会说对于黑人有多么大的歧视。整个中国我觉得还是比较有信心。
关键就是说，要有这个机会组织一个桥梁，就是当你了解对方越多的时候，那你的心态就会发生改变，对他的认识才更全面。就是因为我们年轻一代就接触新事物、接受新事物的能力会比较强，所以对于这种新鲜的这些外来的文化，还是以一种比较客观的眼光在对待。
How long have you been living in China, and what motivated you to come here?
So I've been in China, I think around 4.5 years or a little more than that. And I was motivated to come here because I actually studied Chinese in university.
What do you make of the recent incident of blackface on the CCTV Lunar New Year's show?
So I was actually watching that show. At first, when I first saw it, I thought it was an African woman who had a fake butt and stuff, which I thought was weird, but I was like, well, it's China. And that's a lot of people's responses when they see stuff like this. Oh, it's China. And then when I kind of looked at it, I was like, wait, but there's so many Africans in China who speak Chinese. Like I didn't understand why. It's like I almost want someone to explain why it happened. Like even if they couldn't find an elderly African woman who spoke Chinese, they could have made up a black person to look old. Like they had so many options. This is from a black American perspective. It's not from African perspective. I don't know what Africans think about that skit. They might be angry, they might not, because the thing is, blackface is historically in the U.S. has negative origins because basically white people would paint their face black. It was very obvious that they were in blackface. They wouldn't try to make themselves actually look like an African American. And they would do stereotypical things, kind of degrading. It was just a way to dehumanize black people, make them more like a character, a cartoon, as opposed to a human being.
Have you encountered examples of racism or so on in China, or prejudices?
I like to call it colorism in terms of what I've experienced personally myself, which is essentially Chinese people giving me compliments and saying, oh, you're black but you're not dark, or they'll make fun of somebody else and go, oh, but he's so dark, and then I'll say, well, what's wrong with that? And I feel part of it is lack of exposure to different types of black people.
What about any of your friends, for example?
They'll see much more racism than I do, where sometimes I think it doesn't exist, and then sometimes I do see where they might be where it might be true. For example, sitting on a subway, some people have said that people won't sit next to them, or they'll get up, move away from them. One friend told me that when she was working at Disney, someone called her the Chinese word for the N-word, And so, yeah, it's definitely going to be different for different people. In general, I haven't had too much of a problem. The issue is when you can understand Chinese, I think it makes it a little different. Because, for example, I used to teach at a school like 3 years ago. And you could hear, like, I remember hearing one of the parents saying, thank goodness I have the white teacher, not the black teacher. And the funny thing is that her teacher was actually a non-native speaker from Europe who he could speak good English, but he had a very thick accent. He didn't have like a native American accent that Chinese people associate with good quality English when they're having their kids learn English. I applied for one job where they do recruiting, and they told me sometimes we get schools who only want white people. They said, are you comfortable with that? I said yes at the time, honestly, but I wasn't comfortable, but I just didn't want to make it awkward. Now they have something called Obama Black, which is,
What's that?
it's basically as long as you're the color of Obama, they'll consider that okay. If you're darker than Obama, it's not okay, because at least at this point, because Obama's the president of the United States, people they can accept people that color as being American, but not if you're darker than that, then you're African. So the perception changed a little bit with Obama, but it didn't make things like go away, basically. But you will see ads that say white only, and I saw one ad.
사회에서 한국 사람들이 흑인에 대해서 어떤 편견이나 선입견을 가지고 있는 것 같나요? 예를 들어서 뭐 어디 출신일지, 아니면 뭐 성격은 어떨지, 어떤 직업을 가졌을지 등등.
아프리카에서 왔다고 그렇게 생각을 주로 할 것 같고, 아무래도 좀 놀리는 약간 그런 것들.
어떤 직업을 가질 수가?
그냥 예술. 예술이거나 힘을 쓰거나 그런 거.
스포츠 같은.
네.
이제 싸우면은 무조건 진다. 힘이 굉장히 강하다. 제가 이제 농구를 굉장히 좋아하는데 이제 스포츠 같은 걸 해도 이제 굉장히 차이가 많이 나니까 동양인들이랑 해서 그런 선입견이 가장 강한 것 같아요.
저희 또래는 딱히 그렇게 막 꺼리는 건 없는데 아무래도 부모님 세대가 약간 백인, 흑인 이런 게 좀 있는 것 같아요.
그래서 어떤 식으로 정확하게 선입견이 있어요?
그러니까 막 흑인은 막 위험하다 이런 선입견이 많이 있는 것 같아요. 막 영화에서도 막 총 쏘고 막 마약하고 이런 것 때문에.
혹시 개인적으로 그런 사례를 들어보신 적이 있나요?
놀리는 것 같아요. 굉장히 이제 말을 못 알아듣는다고 생각을 하고 이제 뭐 깜둥이 뭐 깜씨 뭐 이런 식으로 피부색으로 이제 기분 나쁘게 계속 조롱하는 거를 가끔 듣거든요.
아, 그래요?
예.
어디서요?
이제 뭐 길거리 다닐 때 뭐 이렇게 흑인분들 지나가면은 뭐 사람들이 이제 얘기하는 게 들리는데 그런 거 가끔씩 듣거든요.
어디서 이런 선입견이나 편견이 오는 걸까요?
흑인에 대한 선입견이요? 글쎄요. 방송이나
미디어요.
미디어에서 어떻게?
왜냐면 막 영화 같은 데서도 좀 막 흑인들이 가난하고 백인들이 다 부자고 엘리트고 이런 영화를 그냥 어릴 때부터 보고 크니까 그런 것 같아요.